So I thought it was about time that I reviewed these Penhaligon samples that I've got. So in case you didn't know, Penhaligons do have a little section on their website where they have samples, and if you pay for their absolutely outrageously extortionate, overly priced postage and packing, which I think is around about $5.99, even though I know that posting these cost them about $1.99 or maybe £2 maximum for a large letter with Royal Mail anyway. But you do get three. You can get 3 free samples if you pay for the postage and packaging. So essentially it's £2 per sample, which actually I think for Penhaligons, considering they're so ridiculously expensive, is not a bad deal. And these perfumes are, I don't know, how big are these? 1.5 mil, so that's actually pretty good, and it's definitely enough to get an idea of whether you like the scent or not. So my feelings about Penhaligons is that I really used to like their more floral, classic scents that they made. I always wanted Violetta, but by the time I was kind of old enough to even consider affording it or buying it, they didn't make it anymore. I think there's another one that I can never remember the name of that I also really enjoyed back then. Which I think they do still make, but I never really see anyone talking about it. I think it's a bit of a classic perfume, but if I can ever get my nose on it, I will have to seek it out. What is it called? Vara, that's what it's called. And I'll have to try and get my nose on that again at some point, because I just remember being quite fond of that. Of course, my nose has changed. The perfumes, I'm sure, have changed. But anyway, so overall, I feel like Penhaligons are just an extremely expensive house for what you're getting a lot of the time. I do see quite a few influencers talking especially about the portrait collection, but I just think so often when I smell Penhaligons, they kind of smell like things I've already smelt from other houses, and sometimes to the point where they almost smell a bit like a dupe. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but I will say there are a couple here that I think are quite pretty. There's a couple that I think are worth smelling. Whether I think they're worth buying or not, I don't know. Anything that I can think of that has like a good affordable alternative, I will say. I don't have a sample of a couple of things I was interested in just because they've never had them on their website for me to get. I have smelt Elizabethan Rose because someone sent me a sample of that once. I don't love that one. It's not really my kind of vibe because I just don't like too much of a classic rose. But in terms of classic roses, you know, it is a classic rose. In all honesty, you could probably get something like the Marks and Spencer's rose perfume, just their regular rose perfume, and you're going to get something that's in the same realm as Elizabethan Rose, like it is that same kind of thing. Again, it's not going to be like identical, but it's definitely got some similarities, I'd say. So that one might be a good one, and plus because it's Marks and Spencer's, you can go and sniff that in store. I also have smelt Changing Constants from the Portrait range, and I kind of like that one. That's quite nice. It's like caramelly. I'm not sure that I think it's so interesting that it's worth that money, and you can get a decent dupe of that from Perfume Parlour. But overall, it's quite pretty, and it would have been nice to be able to get a sample of it so I could talk about it here. I feel like this one has a little bit of a crossover with Prada Candy, and the kind of affordable take on Prada Candy is Corrèze Black Sugar, which I have, which is like a powdery caramel, kind of slightly floral, really pretty perfume. So, I mean, I would say, although it's definitely not exactly the same, that could be like an affordable alternative to Changing Constants. But yeah, so I'm just going to get going and we can start talking about these one by one. Cut to the first Penhaligons here is from their, I think this is the Portraits collection, is that what it's called? Yeah, Portraits from Penhaligons. This is called Much Ado About the Duke. So if we open this up, you can see a little bit of information here. Conforming to expectations of his class, Duke Nelson married the most coveted girl in London, Duchess Rose. So, Perfume is an ambivalent as he is, floral yet masculine, woody fragrance. So, I'll put up the notes from Fragrantica. so you can see what this says. I really like these portraits though, so I'm just going to leave it there like that, although I will put a picture of the bottle over here. So the notes in Much Ado About the Duke are rose, pepper, gin, woody notes and leather. This one, it is just a slightly masculine rose to me. It's not particularly interesting outside of the fact that it has quite an obvious gin and tonic-y kind of smell to it. That tanning bitterness that you get from like a tonic water and the kind of floral bitterness you get in a gin, you know, that really specific scent and taste, you can sense that here. And you can also sense the rose and the woody notes. And weirdly to me here, the leather is coming across to smell almost sweaty. I'm getting a slightly funky animalic leather from this that smells a little bit like a very gentle body odour kind of smell. Now that's probably just my nose, but it doesn't smell horrifically aromachenically to me, this one. It's not like one that I absolutely hate. It's just not one that I would wear myself. I do think this is kind of unisex, leaning towards a bit more masculine, but I think that rose and the freshness of it is keeping it a little bit more unisex. Yeah, so Much Ado About the Duke, it's not my favourite, but I think it's fine, and I don't object to this one, so I think it's one of the nicer perfumes from Penhaligon's. The Coveted Duchess Rose, a super cool picture again. I really do like these drawings, a little foxy. So this one says, daughter of Lady Blanche, Lord George, Rose married a Duke. Fair enough. What does it say? Fragrance is a not so innocent fresh rose. Okay, so they don't really tell you much about this one. So let's have a look at the notes. The Coveted Duchess Rose. This lists rose, musk, woody notes and mandarin orange. If you're like me, you might be thinking at this moment, that sounds like the same notes from Stella McCartney. And if you can imagine Stella by Stella McCartney, but a much lighter, brighter, less ambery version of that perfume, then it is a little bit like that. It's not like 100% this smells exactly like Stella, but it does definitely have some crossovers. I think if you know what Stella smells like, then you can get a little bit of an idea of what this smells like. I've never smelt the Stella Summer or Stella Sheer, but my feeling is that you could think of this as that kind of thing. It's very light, it's really pretty. Again, it's not too screechy, this one. It's not my favourite kind of rose, but it's pretty enough. It's nice. Again, it's not really my kind of jam, but it's a perfectly pretty perfume. So that's the Coveted Duchess Rose. If you can still get Fleur Fatale from Kim Kardashian, that's a really, really affordable perfume that I find smells like a kind of brighter, more summery version of something like Stella. I feel like that could be a really good alternative to this one. So I just wanted to put that in real quickly, just in case you guys want to look for something that's similar. The Omniscient Mr. Thompson was one that I thought sounded quite exciting. I think, again, this one says it's for men, but I was looking at it and it looked kind of like a lavender and vanilla perfume with lots of orris in it, so kind of irisy, which I thought sounded kind of fascinating, so I wanted to know what it smelled like. So let's have a look. So Omniscient Mr. Thompson, excuse me. So the Omniscient Mr. Thompson, again, it doesn't really say much here about what's in this perfume. It doesn't really describe it. So let's just go straight to the notes. So this one actually has top, middle and base. So it's got top notes of lavender, elemi and pink pepper. I can really smell the elemi here. Middle notes of orris, black pepper, geranium. Base notes of vanilla, sesame and oak. This one is quite pretty. It is a little bit masculine, but not entirely. So it's like, I'd say it's unisex leaning masculine, this one. It reminds me of something, but it's really hard for me to put my finger on it. I'm definitely getting a real sweetness from that vanilla, and I'm definitely sensing the orris here, quite a lot of it. The lavender and the elemi, I can get a sense for both of those. It's a little bit peppery, but it's not crazy. It's definitely oaky. Again, like There's something in this. It's super tangy though, which is interesting because it's not listed any kind of fruits, but there's something very tangy. But generally, it's a kind of slightly creamy, interesting, woody, aromatic vanilla. I actually think this one's kind of good. I quite like this one. This is one I would happily try on my skin just to see how masculine it went on me. But I mean, I think out of all of them so far, this is definitely the nicest one. Yeah, if I look at the pyramid here, vanilla is at the top, followed by the orris, and then the sesame and the lavender. Maybe it's the mixture of the lavender and the pink pepper that's making this kind of a little bit tangy, but it does almost smell like there is like a hidden fruit here somewhere, but nothing that like jumps out as like a fruit. But the kind of tanginess you get in something like a dried apricot, that's what I'm kind of getting a little tingle from. And again, this one, it's not the most natural smelling, but it is quite nice. It's not like really horrifyingly screechy, and it's not tarry, so that's nice. Super pretty, actually. I think that one's a really good one. I think it's the best of this batch so far. So next up is The World According to Arthur. I'd actually already smelt this one, but I thought it would be fun to talk about because this is a perfume that smells very similar to Eau Duelle, to my nose. Eau Duelle, the EDP specifically, which I have and I love. So let's have a look and see what it says inside. Look at the colour of that juice. Woo! So World According to Arthur. Again, it doesn't say anything that's really helpful in terms of describing what this perfume is going to be, but it's a smoky vanilla. So let's take this out and have a spray. I was just kind of looking for different versions of Eau Duelle, but the thing is, Penhaligon's I think it might be even more expensive or around about the same price, so not that helpful in that respect. So the notes listed here are top notes of vanilla, incense and grapefruit, middle notes of ambrette, clary sage, base notes of incense and tonka bean. So this really is just very similar to my nose to Eau Duelle. I don't think it's as nice. And the reason for that is I think that the incense is a bit stronger here. I mean, maybe you could say it's much greener than Baby Cat, and it's not quite as vanillic as Baby Cat, but it is somewhere between. It's like the Eau Duelle base with the smoky feel from Baby Cat. It's that kind of thing. I have Baby Cat and Eau Duelle, and they're both amazing. But the thing with The World About Arthur that I thought was kind of a letdown is it does have that tarry aroma chemical in it that comes out the more and more it dries down. So whereas it starts out smelling like Eau Duelle EDP with that lovely incensey smoky feel, it then dries down to smell more and more like a kind of tarry sheer vanilla. Like, yeah, so it's just not as good as Eau Duelle. It's not as good as Baby Cat. And by the looks of it, also compared to Spiritus Double Vanille, but I don't think it's quite as sweet as that one. And I think they just, all of those perfumes have quite a similar vanilla, so I think that's what's going on here. But yeah, I mean, personally for me, The World According to Arthur is just a not as nice version of Diptyque's Eau Duelle. So my advice would always be to just get Eau Duelle. I think it's a nicer perfume and I think it smells less chemically than this. If you want something greener, then the EDT is the one to go for, and that's my favourite personally. But if you want something a bit more wintry and a bit smokier, then the EDP is the one to go for. But yeah, so that's Penhaligon's World According to Arthur. I've yet to find a good dupe of Eau Duelle. I've never really smelt anything in the affordable realm that quite hits it. But the thing that I would always say, like, if you can't get Eau Duelle, then the thing I think gives me a feeling that is kind of similar to it in the way it's like an interesting green vanilla is Lalique Le Parfum. It has this kind of green herbal element from a bay leaf note, but it's got the same sheer vanilla. Very, very similar vanilla that's in Eau Duelle and Baby Cat. So I think that those are both really, really comparable to Lalique Le Parfum. There's just, they're kind of in a little group for me of being that kind of sheer vanilla that I really enjoy, that's either smoky or green, or sometimes spicy. So yeah, I really do think that one's quite a good shout in terms of getting a beautiful, and it smells incredible for the price. It's outrageous how cheap you can get it. But yeah, Lalique Le Parfum is absolutely wonderful. So this next one, how am I going to pronounce this? Aui? Aula? Because I think that the capitalization here confuses me. I think those are eyes. So I think it's Ayuya? Ayuya? Please forgive me. I don't really know. Every single place I've seen this, it's got the capitalization that suggests that's A-I-U-I and then a little a. So I don't really know what's going on here. But anyway, this perfume, let's take a look inside, see what it says. So deserts, heat, incense, vanilla, spice. So this is obviously from their collection. What is this called? I think they've got one that's kind of like a kind of all over the world collection, like a kind of travel collection. I don't know if it has a specific name though. There's me saying I don't know, and right there it says trade routes. So let's look at the notes. Top notes of frankincense, black pepper, Guatemalan cardamom. Middle notes of plum, tobacco, saffron. Base notes of vanilla and turmeric. This is very tangy to me. It's got a spiciness. That plum is sharp and tart and tangy, and then there's some vanilla. There's a ever so slightly kind of balsamic-y feel to this. You're definitely getting the tobacco. It's a little tiny bit screechy to me, this one, but not horrific. Yeah, I mean, I don't love this, but it does smell, it smells a tiny bit like something else that I have a sample of. Le Couvent, I think it's called, Nubica or something like that, but that one's a bit smoother, a bit sweeter. Quite patchouli heavy, that one. This one, it's also been compared to Volutes from Diptyque, the EDT version of that. I don't know if they even make that anymore, but I feel like it is in that same kind of realm. There's like a slightly honeyed sweetness almost, more than a vanillic sweetness. But it's tart, it's spicy, it's, you know, it's okay. This is not really my favourite kind of thing. Perfumes that smell a little bit balsamic to me tend to not end up being my favourite. But it's perfectly fine. It's just not my actual favourite, but it's nice enough. So yeah, that one is not bad. It's not my kind of thing, but it's really not bad. So that's Ayuya. Oh God, please forgive me. So the favourite, this is inspired, I believe, by the movie, and this is one I'm not surprised doesn't work for me, because it is absolutely laden with ambroxan. Not in any way a small amount of ambroxan. So let's have a look at what it says. I think this is inspired, therefore, like by Queen Anne. Indian sandalwood, freesia, violet. So there's some beautiful things in here. But I find this one painful. It splitting headache levels of screech in this. So the notes for the favourite are violet, freesia, mandarin orange in the top, mimosa, iris, jasmine in the mid, base notes musk, ambroxan, sandalwood. Screechy florals, screechy musk, head-splitting amount of ambroxan, which I never get on with in large doses. I just cannot cope with huge amounts of ambroxan. It is just like a headache in a bottle. When you first spray it, you get this lovely kind of light, fun, feminine floral bouquet, and then it just absolutely falls off a cliff into the like a bucket of ambroxan. It's just no good for me. So yeah, I think it also turns weirdly sickly in quite a strange way. It's just a perfume that I really don't like. And of course, The Favourite is quite a strange and jarring film, and the character of Queen Anne is quite strange and jarring, and everyone around her is strange and jarring. So it does kind of match that the perfume would be strange and jarring too. But yeah, this is definitely not one for me. So this can leave my collection immediately. Next up, we have Highgrove Bouquet. This is, I mean, quintessentially British, you know, it's Highgrove, it's a British royalty, you know, all of that classic stuff. So this one is supposed to be for men and women. Let's have a little look inside. So what does it say? HRH Prince of Wales, now King of England. So lavender, geranium, mimosa, tuberose, orris. You've got a whole bunch of lovely garden florals and herbs and lovely aromatics. So this is very green and fresh. The notes on Fragrantica only list linden, blossom, mimosa and cedar. But as you can see, there's more going on in that. So they don't have the correct set of notes here. That's annoying. But anyway, this definitely has a sweet fluffiness, a lovely greenness. It does smell like a garden. I think this one is one of their best in many ways. It kind of reminds me a little bit of classic greener perfumes. Things like Cristal. I have the Eau Verte. The Eau Verte is kind of it almost smells like a tea perfume, but the kind of greener Chanels and things like Elizabeth Arden Eau Fraiche. It has the greener elements of those, but it then has a very sweet, yummy mimosa that's really coming through. And I really think it smells kind of like a magical garden once it dries down. So this is honestly one of the best ones from any of the more modern perfumes I've smelt from Penhaligons. The reason being that it is just one of the most natural that I've smelt from Penhaligons. So this is one I would happily wear. I'd like this in summertime when I just want to smell like a garden. Like, this is really pretty. So yeah, that is definitely a recommendation. I think that High Grove Bouquet is really lovely. Next up we have Artemisia. This is one of those perfumes that I was like, I'm definitely going to love this because this is a tea perfume with violet, and those are absolutely a couple of things that I love. So really cool. Let's look at the inside, see if it says anything. Nectarines and tea, and then a bit of vanilla, honey trap, okay. Violet, cyclamen, lily. So there's quite a lot going on here. They're actually telling you hint of caramel from the vanilla and amber and sugar. So let's have a look at the notes and have a sniff. So this said top notes of nectarine and green notes, mid notes of violet, vanilla, lily of the valley, tea, jasmine and green apple, base notes musk, sandalwood and oak moss and amber. This is a cute violet. It's a nice scent. It really reminds me of something. It is a little tiny bit like a kind of powdery, violety version of something like Giulietta from Toka. I don't think it smells exactly the same because this is definitely more violety. But also, I know what it is. So I have a perfume called First Snow from Victorinox. That is a sort of tonka vanilla but very sheer perfume that smells kind of cold because there's a eucalyptus note in that. This doesn't really smell like eucalyptus, but it does have a really similar profile to that. And it also smells a little bit like Lush. So I'm just trying to think, like, it has the kind of violet that you get in Lush perfumes. Like, that's what it's making me think of. So things like confetti, and that has like a real greenness in it. It's possible this will drive me mad because I feel like I actually have had a perfume that smells almost exactly like this. And if I owned it, it won't be as expensive. But yeah, I mean, I think it's not quite American Cream. Maybe it's more like Lush V. It's in that kind of neck of the woods. But I like this one. I think it's pretty. I would happily wear this one. There doesn't seem to be anything in this that I find like horribly scratchy. Although, of course, on my skin, that could be a different matter. If I look at the notes, musk is voted right up the top. So if the musk doesn't work on me, that could be a disaster. And if the oak moss doesn't work on me, that can be a green disaster, like a bitter greenness. But generally speaking, I think Artemisia is definitely worth a try. I think that this one's nice. Again, I will preface this by, saying these are all very expensive. So any way that I can suggest that you try something that smells like this but is cheaper, definitely worth it. But yeah, Artemisia is quite nice. So next up we have Solaris. I have seen a few people talking about this one. I think when this came out there were a couple of YouTubers who either had samples or the bottle and really enjoyed it. So let's look at what it says on the inside. Cedar, sandalwood, vanilla. Okay. This, I think, though, I mean, you can kind of tell it's called Solaris. It's going to be a kind of solar beachy perfume. I think that was the idea. So Weirdly though, this honestly, it smells like peaches. So if we look at the notes, this is top notes of neroli, lemon, black currant, mid notes of tiare flower, ylang ylang, jasmine, base notes vanilla, sandalwood and cedarwood. But somehow it smells like a peachy nectarine when I spray this. And then slowly but surely you get a bit of the ylang and tiare flower, maybe a bit of neroli, but it's quite a gentle neroli. It's nowhere near as bitter and green as a lot of nerolis that I have tried. So it's quite a nice neroli. I'm not really getting much of the vanilla, but I am increasingly getting a little bit more of a kind of tarry and bitter wood the longer this dries down. And I think when I first got this, and again, one of the reasons I didn't talk about it is because when I tested it, it did turn tarry on me. So it wasn't instantly tarry, like some perfumes have so much of whatever that aroma chemical is. I don't know if it's like Ambrofix or something. Some perfumes have so much of that it just becomes instantly painful to smell. This one is really pretty at first, and then that just kind of came through in the deep dry down. The flowers aren't too buttery. I mean, I think this one's really nice. I mean, I have O'Mahely from Diptyque. O'Mahely. I'm never quite sure the best way to pronounce that. But that is a lovely sheer ginger and ylang ylang perfume, which is really lovely. It's got this kind of spiciness. It's really pretty. This is, I would say, in that same kind of realm. It smells like yellow florals. It smells like sunshiny florals. There's a touch of butteriness. It gets more buttery as it dries down, as the ylang ylang dies down a little bit and the tiare flower takes over. And then you're getting that hint of things like terracotta, you know? I mean, I don't know that I could suggest something really affordable that smells exactly like this, because the fruitiness in the top here, I think, is making it smell different from a lot of other things. Even if it's blackcurrant and lemon and for some reason smells like kind of nectarines or peaches or something, very fresh, not syrupy, like juicy. But overall, I think something like that Sol de Janeiro one called Rio Radiance, I think they still make that one. That is this same kind of bright, solar, beachy, pretty floral, although I think that one has coconut. And one of the things that is different about this is it doesn't smell like coconut. So Solaris is pretty. Again, it's one that didn't really work particularly well for me, but it is a nice scent. Not as nice as O'Mahely though. I thought that Luna looked absolutely lovely, so let's have a little look. Goddess of the Moon, always going to love anything like that. So it says orange bigarade. I'm never sure what that is. It's some kind of bitter orange. Juniper berry and a woody base. So let's have a little look. This is an eau de toilette. It's very light, and for the price, it would have to be incredible for me to think this is worth it. This one I find a little bit screechy. This is a little bit headache in a bottle again. Let's have a look at the notes, see what it lists. So this is top notes of lemon, bergamot and bitter orange, mid notes of rose, juniper berry and jasmine, base notes balsam fir, musk and ambergris. This to me also smells like there might be ambroxan in it. It has that kind of head splitting feel. The rose is a little bit sharp for me here. But overall, I think if it smelled a little bit less chemically to me, I would think that this was really quite pretty and light and fresh. It's got a kind of cold smell to it because of that juniper, which I think is really pretty. So this is compared to L'Ombre, what's it called? Don La Eau from Diptyque. But I think that's a very blackcurrant heavy perfume and greener than this as well. It's compared to In Love Again from, what's it called? YSL, which is a perfume that was my signature scent for a while. And it definitely is in that neck of the woods, but it doesn't smell exactly the same. And actually what I think this smells like, that you can get for so much cheaper, is one I gave to my sister, which it actually does have blackcurrant in it, to be honest, but it is from Miu Miu, and it is called Daring Darling. In the UK, you can get a bottle of that from Direct Cosmetics, I think, for about £15 I think I spent on it. The reason I didn't keep that one is because it really did remind me a little bit of In Love Again, and I have a bottle of that. I didn't need another one. It weirdly, it lists top notes of blackcurrant, mid notes of lavender and rose, and base notes of musk, but I think it smells quite similar to this. It smells similar to In Love Again. It is a little bit like L'Ombre d'Onzo from Diptyque, which I always find difficult to say, but that one I think is greener. But this is also similar to Kayali Citrus, that kind of thing. It's all of these are in the same kind of group, but I would say if you can get hold of the Miu Miu one, it's just much more affordable, but it smells very similar to this. Yeah, it's perfectly nice. To me, it's a little bit screechy, but it's pretty enough. So that's Luna from Penhaligon's. So next on the list is Babylon. This one. This is from the trade routes as well, as you can see. So what does it say? Majestic wonder of the ancient world, Mesopotamia. I am so bad at pronouncing these places. Temples and gates. So I was expecting this to be very woody, you know, but kind of sweet as well, because I think I read that this was a vanilla perfume. But let's have a look. Notes in the top are nutmeg, saffron, coriander, mid notes of cypriol oil, base notes of vanilla, sandalwood and cedar. Yeah, this is a woody and again slightly tangy but vanillic perfume. It almost has a bit of a smokiness to it. It definitely, or it does have a nod towards Baby Cat. It doesn't literally smell like Baby Cat, but it's definitely aiming to be in that neck of the woods. You know what I mean? But weirdly, it's coming off a little bit more like Zershov. And it's weird because I so often have smelt newer Penhaligon perfumes, and they have kind of smelt like dupes of other perfumes, but they're massively expensive. So you'd kind of expect them to have really original ideas. It's like when they brought out the Oh, the Audacity by the same perfumer who made Baby Cat, and I can't remember the original perfume that he made, Ropion, that was kind of the pre-Baby Cat, but, you know, pretty much same perfume, but the Penhaligon ones is more chemically to me, not as nice. Bouquet Idyll is nicer though, that's the thing. Like, I think Babylon smells a little bit, just a little bit more balsamic, I think, although they are very similar actually. Like, I find that Xerjoff perfumes again are sometimes a little bit too chemically for me, but Bouquet Idyll I think is quite nice. I have a little sample of a Dupe House's version of that, because all these perfume houses are so expensive. I'm not really interested in spending that kind of money, but it's definitely in the neck of the woods, I'd say. Bouquet Idyll. It's that kind of thing. It's smoky. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but not too much. It's a bit tangy. Yeah, it's okay. I don't love it. It's not really one that I'm ever going to particularly want to wear, to be honest, but it's nice enough. It's not horrific. But yeah, again, not necessarily my kind of vibe, but you know, it's okay. It's okay. So let's end with an absolute classic. This is Halfeti. This one has been around since, I mean, I say it's an absolute classic. It's been around, I think, since 2015. And that does not feel like a long time ago to me, but it is 10 years old. So let's have a look at what it says inside. Warm, strong, bergamot, artemisia, jasmine, spiced rose. This to me, though, I always thought of as a very, very woody and spicy perfume. And now I've actually got the sample, I feel like it does definitely fit into the woody, spicy category. So this one lists top notes of cypress, saffron, cardamom, artemisia, bergamot and grapefruit, mid notes of Bulgarian rose, nutmeg, jasmine, base notes agar wood, so that's an oud, cedar, leather, sandalwood, amber, tonka bean, vanilla and musk. Anyone who watches my channel is going to know that this isn't going to be up my street. I really only have one proper woody perfume now in my collection, that's Stash by Sarah Jessica Parker, and it's not at all oudy. This has so much of that tarry aroma chemical in the dry down that I just really do not like it. I think maybe here it's because there's some kind of synthetic oud. I think that might be what's popping out at me here. It's spicy, it's tangy. Again, it's almost balsamic in the feel. There's almost something vinegary going on here. I'm looking through the perfumes to see what this is compared to. And it's not really anything I know because these are just not my kind of scents. I really don't like rose and oud together. I don't really like any oudy perfumes. There's like one from Lush that I quite like, called The Smell of Freedom, that has a very natural soft oud in it, and that one's beautiful. But this, for me, the combination of the leather, the oud, the rose and the citruses are just not my vibe. However, obviously I know there's loads of people who love Halfeti and they love this scent. It is, for me, I mean, it's just a little bit too masculine for me as well, but that tarry smell in the dry down is just not doing it for me. So that one just doesn't work for me. So that's Halfeti. So that's it, guys. That is the Penhaligons review of these little samples that I've got. I don't think this is necessarily the house for me. I think the Highgrove bouquet is the thing that stands out the most to me as being kind of the most classic, properly smells like a British garden. That one I think is really special. And yeah, there's a couple here that I'd like to try, you know, and actually wear. But generally speaking, you know, they're so expensive. They're not my favourite, but it's still really fun to test these out. So that's Penhaligon. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos, please do subscribe. I'm normally talking about much more affordable perfumes, but, you know, when it comes to samples, I'm happy to sniff the more expensive ones in the hope I can find a much more affordable alternative. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.